Hi, everyone. My name is Rick Coster. I am from the Day newspaper, and on this commemorative occasion, that being it's the 17th nor'easter we've had in the last 11 days, we're surprised to even be here at Live Lunch Break in the Telegraph record shop because we were all supposed to be in Antarctica instead. But we made it. We made it here. And more importantly, Alexander made it here all the way from New Haven. You had to hike the last few miles, right, to get over the snowbanks.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I was told it was going to be out here.
You know. Anyway, Alexander is our guest today. We're very. I love what you're doing on his self-titled first acoustic solo instrumental album. You're a young man. I am so old that I remember when the Japanese ambient artist Isao Tomita came out with what he called tone poems on acoustic instruments. You may or may not be familiar with that, but and we'll get to this, but there's a compositional quality and an aesthetic to how you come up with these songs, and they're beautiful, they're meditative, and I'm really glad that you're here. So please welcome to Live Lunch Break, Alexander.
Four? Four. Yeah, it's four. They're all short ones.
Yeah, but you were using the segues.
Yeah.
The musical segues. It caught me by surprise. Thanks for joining us on Live Lunch Break. My name is Rick Coster, and we are in the Telegraph Record Shop, as always, in New London. We stream Live Lunch Break at theday.com, and we archive all of the hundreds of these episodes that we have done. So it's always fun to go back and look at the artists that we've had. This is Alexander, in one way of thinking, the one-man band. But you're also David when I'm just talking to you, right?
That's my first name, yeah. David, yeah.
David, I loved that stuff. Although I was fooled. I thought that was two songs instead of four.
Yeah,
so you fooled me.
It's a tricky one. They were all written almost at the same time, so it feels kind of like one song.
I like it. I'm a guy that owns Genesis albums from the 70s, so I like the longer format. But It's true that you also have had extensive experience, whatever, in an electric guitar format, and you've explored a lot of. How would you describe it? I'm thinking Robert Fripp, Sonic Youth, that sort of thing.
Yeah. For me, it comes from Hendrix more than anything else.
Not a damn thing wrong with that.
Yeah, I love Hendrix. I've always loved Hendrix. I really love live Hendrix. Some of the studio, like unreleased studio stuff keeps coming out and has been out. I don't know, a lot of that stuff is cool. And that's where, that was my first introduction to really freaky electric guitar noises. And I kind of fell in love with it.
Do you remember a specific Hendrix song when you were young where you just that takes the top of my head off?
Yeah, totally. It was a Machine Gun on Live at Berkeley, which was the first record I ever owned.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was a gift for my birthday from my mother when I was turning 14, I think.
Your mother got you live Hendrix?
Yeah, she knew, because I wore Hendrix T-shirts every day to school.
You had how many Hendrix T-shirts?
I had about 8 T-shirts and then 1 sweatshirt, and I would wear a different T-shirt every day to school, and I'd put the same sweatshirt on over it.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, that was 7th and half of 8th grade was Hendrix only. Basically.
Man, we could talk about Hendrix all day. I didn't know we were going to go. I have to tell you that I made sort of a pilgrimage, and I went to his grave in Renton, south of Seattle, and the weird thing is you kind of get lost in that part of the neighborhood. And so I pulled into a convenience store, and there was a young woman working there, and I said, I'm trying to find Jimi Hendrix's grave. And she goes, Jimmy who? And this older guy that was like the manager of the store came out of the back. He goes, don't ask her. She doesn't know who Hendrix is. Wow. And then he knew exactly, then take a left and go 7 more feet. It was that precise.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Then, how did you segue from, not that you're not doing that anymore, but where did this acoustic, and I call it a tone poem, which may sound pompous or ridiculous, but I sort of liked what you were doing in that context. Where did this come from?
Well, I've been playing sort of fingerstyle acoustic guitar music for a really long time, but I never started performing it or really finishing songs instead of just writing snippets, actually finishing tunes, until I moved to Vermont in 2014, and I was living out in the woods. And previous to that, I was playing a lot of electric guitar and not performing any acoustic guitar. And I think it had to do with sort of being inspired by the tensions of the soundscapes of city life, and just the general tensions of city life made me want to play really loud electric guitar stuff.
Sure.
And then I moved out to the woods in Vermont, and life was kind of peaceful and calm. And I would just sit by the lake and play acoustic guitar most of the day. And then it really just came from that. It came from sitting around listening to the birds and the lake.
It makes perfect sense in terms of what's going on around you. You mentioned earlier in the conversation that you had snippets. What made you want to coalesce those into song structure? Was it something that you set out as an exercise to do, or was it something artistic that was wait, I've got to do this now, and this is why?
Yeah, it was definitely the latter. It was one of the few times I ever felt gripped by a need to write a song about something. And obviously I don't have words, but it means something to me, and their songs are referencing something specific that happened to me. And I had a really intense dream one night shortly after I moved to Vermont, and I woke up from the dream. I should have gone into the wood shop to get to work, but I just couldn't imagine doing anything besides picking up my guitar and documenting the feelings that this dream made me have. And I wrote a tune in about 10 minutes that was to me felt like the one part of the essence of that dream. And then in the next 20 minutes I wrote 2 more tunes, and it was all coming from this one feeling.
I think that is a magnificent experience for one to have. I can only assume that, but were you, in fact, a luthier?
I was studying to be at that time, yeah. I was studying with George Morris at Vermont Instruments to build acoustic guitars. Yeah.
We're talking with Alexander. Actually, I'm talking with David. David is Alexander in the context that Alexander is a band, but it is a one-person band, and the one person would be David. So That's accurate, right?
Yeah.
All right,
I'll
got
quote
it.
you on that when I have to explain that to people.
So, and thank you guys for joining us on Live Lunch Break. Your first album in this context is called Alexander, and it's got 10 pieces on it, right?
I think it's 9.
9.
I think
Yeah,
it's
it is
9.
9.
Yeah.
8 of them are titled in a Roman numeral context, and one is called Catfish Blues. Is it the Catfish Blues?
Yeah, so there's a note on the bottom of the record that says it was originally recorded by Robert Petway.
Yeah.
And it's my arrangement of that tune, Catfish Blues, that's seen a lot of different versions over the years.
Right, including Hendrix.
Including Hendrix, which is how I found out about it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Originally, yeah.
Fantastic. So where does that fit? Why did Catfish Blues fit contextually on this album of otherwise original compositions?
Man, I wish I could say I had like a really thought out answer for that. It was an arrangement.
Stupid question.
No, it's a good question.
That's a stupid question.
No, not at all. It's a good question, and it's something that I should think more about and should have a better answer to. It's really just an arrangement I did because I always loved that tune. I told myself I would never ever do a Hendrix cover in my life. Like even if I play in a bar band and I'm playing like whatever classic rock tunes, I don't want to cover Hendrix because it feels sacred or something. But covering Catfish Blues felt like a way to do a version of a Hendrix tune that wasn't really so much covering Hendrix because it's like got elements of the Petway version, and the Muddy Waters found his way in there, and there's all those different things. And I just recorded, when I went to the studio, I recorded all the tunes that I knew how to play. And then I assembled an album of the ones that seemed to flow the best. So there's a bunch of ones that got left out, not because they weren't necessarily good tunes, but just because they didn't make sense with the flow of the record. And Catfish Blues felt like it fit nicely where it fit, yeah.
And that does make perfect sense to me. And I was in bands, and sometimes they were cover bands, and I kind of felt that way about Hendrix too until I heard Eric Johnson say once that he did Red House because it felt like he was sort of, he didn't use the word praying, but it was sort of that mystical connection in homage to Hendrix or whatever. So your Catfish Blues, that's what we're gonna. Yeah. That's how we're gonna say that fits in there. So
yeah, and that got a name because it was already named. My own stuff never will be named.
I like that idea of it, just Roman numeral one.
I mean, I guess the numeral is a name in a sense, but no words. I don't want to put words to them.
And something like that is very private, and the way you express it artistically has a connection for you, and maybe the rest of us just aren't meant to know what those songs mean. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think...
or does that take away from the essence of the song if we have an interpretation that you provided?
I think it's a distraction almost from the essence of the song. Yeah, but I mean, I've always complained against sort of artist statements and creative people explaining their own creativity because I think they all do a bad job of it.
I couldn't agree more.
And I think that creativity generally speaks for itself. And I just like to let it go that way. You know, some people a lot of times will offer me ideas of song titles because they'll have an image in their head from a tune that I wrote that was about something else entirely. And I like that. I think it's cool.
It's
I'm never going to use those song titles, but I like hearing people's interpretations of, because when I play a tune, I have a specific image or set of images in my head that are associated with that tune. So it's cool to see what other people are seeing from the same sounds, I guess.
I love that. And again, we're talking with Alexander or David, depending on, But before we go back to the music, which is more important than me blathering, I wonder, I liked so much your answer about Vermont and your experiences and moods there were best captured in an acoustic format as opposed to the electric guitar that we would get in the city. How do these songs work for you now that you're living back in a city? Do they take you back? Does that provide that sort of a therapy or an evocative response if you play them? Or do they feel altered somewhat, like maybe they were never supposed to leave Vermont?
The ones that still feel meaningful, I continue to perform.
Okay.
And the ones that have, either taken a hiatus from feeling meaningful or have ceased altogether feeling meaningful for me. I stopped playing. I mean, I've written more tunes since moving back. I live in New Haven. It's not a huge city, but it's definitely not Post Mills, Vermont, with a couple hundred people living there, you know. And I've written new tunes that, you know, I think I lived there for a year and a half. This is going to be too long of an explanation, so I'll try to keep it short.
No, I think it's fascinating.
But before I moved to the woods, I thought there was a type of beauty that exists only in the woods, or like far away from, you know, too much noise, the city, all that stuff. And then I was hoping to find a sort of like deeper understanding of the beauty that exists out there, that really could exist everywhere if you can make yourself aware of it or something like that. And I feel a lot less tense living in the city now than I did before I left to Vermont for a while. I think, I don't really know how to say the tunes. I think they mean different things in different contexts. I think they mean a different thing every time I play them to me, even though they're about something specific.
Sure.
Just because it's happening in a new place in front of new people, and it's new every time almost.
Well, this probably isn't what you wanted to hear, David, but now I feel cheated that you can't play some of the songs you wrote in Vermont because they don't feel right now. So I don't get to hear them.
Some of them might be all right. Yeah. Some of them might be okay.
Would you do us the favor of playing a few more songs?
I'll play a couple tunes, yeah.
All right, thanks for being here. And this is Alexander from New Haven, Connecticut.
pretty new tune. This is a new one. Yeah. I might retune my guitar for a second and then play an old one.
Sure.
Because. Here's a couple off the record. Yeah. last tune, I guess?
Sure.
Yeah. This one's also off the record.
Which one is
For
it?
the record.
Is this
God.
IV, I? I'm doing Roman numeral counting.
I'm trying to remember where it is on the record.
Don't worry about it.
7, 8, 9. I think it's track 6.
All right.
I think. Something's wrong.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Alexander. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I had fun too.
From New Haven, Connecticut, Alexander joining us on Live Lunch Break. The album is called Alexander. It's got 9 songs, 8 of which are originals. 1 is by Jimi Hendrix. The total 9, and that's the exact same number of combined Jimi Hendrix T-shirts and sweatshirts you had growing up.
Yeah, it's true.
Alexander, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, where can people find stuff?
I've got a website. It's davidalexanderguitars.com. Guitars is plural there. davidalexanderguitars.com. And then I've got a Bandcamp page. It's davidalexanderguitars.bandcamp.com. You can get my stuff through there. And also Forced Exposure carries the LP and a split 7-inch with Rob Noyes, who's also amazing.
Excellent. You playing anywhere in the near future that people could see you?
I'm trying to think. Well, tomorrow night I'm playing at the Amity Teen Center, which was a place I played a lot growing up. I haven't played in like over 10 years, but I'm going to do some electric guitar, do a little psych out kind of thing. That'll be fun. And then Saturday, I play lead guitar with Kath Bloom, who's a folk singer from Connecticut. Folk singer, whatever. She sings songs. She's really great. We're playing a show on Saturday night in New Haven at a place called Never Get to Be Cool.
Fabulous.
More shows coming up. Lots of shows all the time.
You guys look for Alexander. It's been a real pleasure to have you here. Thank you. I'm Rick Coster for Live Lunch Break. You can always see our archived episodes at theday.com/live lunch. Thanks to Rich and the Telegraph Record Shop, as always. Next week we have Swimming Bell and Alexander. What is it? Who is it, Peter? Who is it, Rich, next week?
I can't remember the other guy's name, but Swimming Bell.
Swimming Bell. I lost it at that. Is that dude's name, I guess? I don't know. They'll be good. I'll say that.
Cool.
Right? So, all right. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next time.